Hello, everyone. Good morning here from Arizona. Good afternoon or good evening, wherever you're tuning in from worldwide here. This is A Course in Miracles 365, Awakening to Love. I'm your host, Tomas Garza, and I want to welcome you here today. This is a very, very fun exercise in the workbook, a very, very fun lesson and idea that is liberating and powerful. So as you've seen, if you've been following along here, we're hitting a string of highly powerful, highly beneficial truths. It's simply truth. And these are each statements that have the absolute power to liberate you. They have the absolute power and the strength and the truth to liberate. I hope that when you hear that, that it is exciting to you. Now, we all get bogged down in life. We all slog through certain situations. Maybe it's a situation that's been chronic, right? I mean, we all have periods of time in our lives where we wish we were somewhere else. Yeah. We wish sometimes we were having someone else's experience because they appear to be having a happy, a joyful, a serene and peaceful experience while we're in a storm of drama, psychodrama. Yeah, we can all relate to that. These ideas will help us. And if you do nothing else with the workbook in A Course in Miracles, but sift through every so often even and read the day's idea, they're all very short, they're all poignant, they're all extraordinarily powerful. Why? Because they all are truth. They're true. They have the power of God. Nothing more and nothing less. In fact, there is nothing more, and happily, there is nothing less. That does mean that all of our psychodrama here in the world, all of the situations that we place ourselves in, either willingly or unwittingly without realizing it, do not exist. In truth, this is a statement of truth. So the idea for today is lesson 102 in the workbook. I share God's will for happiness for me. Now, yesterday we took a look at happiness, about how it actually is our function, and we'll see that again today, that God's will for each of us is perfect happiness. I spent some time yesterday talking about my upbringing in a couple of fundamentalist Christian traditions. I know some of you can relate to that, where I was taught that I was a sinner along with everybody else. I mean, there's nothing special or unique about my experience in that regard. It was just what I went through. And maybe you did too. But I was taught that I was a sinner and less than, because that idea was very widely propagated and jet propelled from the pulpit, from literature, to Sunday school, where I sat really bored out of my mind a lot of the time as a 12 and 13-year-old kid. Yeah. Might want to look at yesterday's video too, because I tell about occasionally formulating the wish to challenge the adults that led the class. Yeah, because I never bought into the notion that we were separate from God, that we were less than, that there was any such thing as sin. So when I discovered A Course in Miracles, or shall I say it discovered me in 2013, I was relieved and felt very, very deeply empowered, because this is confirmation of what I've always known. Now, eventually, each of us, no matter how we get there, no matter how much time it may take, doesn't even have to be this lifetime. It could be the next or the next or the next or the next. Whether you believe in that sort of thing or not, doesn't make any difference. The function of time is for us to have this experience, to have this realization, to wake up, in other words. because we really are running around sleeping. In fact, it could be easily likened to in a coma, really. Reality, on the other hand, has never changed. It's never gone anywhere. And what we're all in the process of waking up to is the realization, the fundamental realization that we are not broken. You are not broken. You are not broken. You may feel broken, sure, right? But you're not. Ultimately, at the core, the heart of the matter, right? Truth with a capital T, your self with a capital S is not broken. Not in any way. Not in any way. And my hope in continuing to restate this and reiterate it, I mean, Jesus does it, so I can do it too. Yeah. I mean, he does it throughout the course, throughout the workbook, throughout the text of A Course in Miracles. So will any spiritual teacher repeat and recast the exact same lesson over and over again in different ways to reach different people on a different day? You might hear the same lesson today that you heard yesterday. Yesterday, it didn't hit for you. Today, it may. So what do? I continue to show up and deliver the message. Yeah, that's all of our job. So I'm simply doing my part. I share God's will for happiness for me. Now, this is an important step. Yesterday in Lesson 101, we took a look at the fact, the truth, that God's will for us is perfect happiness. God does not will us to suffer. Perfect love doesn't even know suffering, doesn't recognize it. Love only recognizes itself. It can only extend itself. So, having chosen the ego here in the world again and again and again and again, separation, pain, psychodrama, each of us has made a choice that we're now living the results of. And that is inconsistent happiness at best here in the world. I mean, it makes sense. We're all subject to a flurry of conflicting emotions. And if you're not feeling conflicting emotions right now, sadness, pain, guilt, the results of a choice of fear over love, in other words, maybe in 15 minutes you will. And I hope you don't, but you may. My point in saying all of this is that there are no guarantees here in the world that something's not going to come along and trigger you. And in fact, you can absolutely expect that. I mean, I might say something that triggers you right now. I don't know. I may. Someone else may. I mean, you may get off of this live stream, or if you're catching the replay, this might be 15 to 20 minutes of relative calm, peace, and serenity for you. And then you pick up your cell phone and there's a text from someone that's angry at you. I don't know. You may read a piece of news that angers and shocks you. Maybe it's political in origin. I don't know. Life comes at us with all kinds of things. The question is, how are we showing up? How are we working with that? All of this is the raw material for awakening. Why? Because all of the drama that comes up, all the stuff, and again, I invite you to insert another word for stuff that I freely and happily use in private videos, but here on the network, I'll leave you to your own imagination. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. All of the stuff that gets dredged up is for a reason. The reason is it's coming up for release. It's coming up for release so we can let it go. Let it go. Deal with it skillfully. How do we learn to do that? Spiritual practice, whatever that looks like for you. And there are several very, very well-defined, succinct ways in A Course in Miracles that one could deal with all of this stuff coming up for release. So None of us wants to suffer. What we're doing here in lesson 102 is we're piggybacking on lesson 101. And this is dictated by Jesus, who knows precisely what he's doing, does he not? So one lesson, one idea in the workbook follows quite logically, quite naturally from the previous idea. So what we're doing here is we're sharing in God's will for perfect happiness for us. We're accepting this. Lesson 101 yesterday, God's will is perfect happiness for us is perfect happiness. That's the gist of that. Today we're sharing in that will. It's an important next step. One is to kick around and become accustomed to the idea. And then we're sharing in it. This is active on our part. It's immediate on our part. And the truth is, no matter what our psychodrama looks like in the world, none of us wants to suffer, not one. Really, truly. No matter how much we may insist that we do, no matter how much we may insist on a pattern of behavior that we know hurts us. Let's take relationships, for example. Maybe you are habitually attracted to abusive or unhealthy, toxic relationships. I know plenty of people who are. Plenty. I mean, and I really do, because I spent 13 years in this lifetime as a child custody mediator. So you can bet I saw a lot of toxicity. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So what's going on in this example is we repeatedly choose, and it could be a toxic relationship, could be something else, could be unhealthy physical habits. I mean, maybe you eat things that you know are not good for you and they're affecting your health. Maybe you are persisting at a job or a career that is sucking and draining your will to live every day, yet you still stay with it for money or for whatever other reason, right? The examples could be endless. We're choosing things that make us suffer. And no matter how much we may continue to choose them and kid ourselves and delude ourselves into thinking it's okay. Anybody ever done that? I've done that. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. I most certainly have done that. No matter how much we may delude ourselves into thinking all of this is okay, deep down, none of us wants to suffer. And guess what? We don't have to. What we can do is practice today's idea, lesson 102 in the workbook. We don't have to be martyrs. Okay, anybody know any martyrs that deliberately create suffering for themselves as a means of getting attention, as a means of perpetuating their own egoic vision of themselves as well, as a martyr, as long suffering? Yeah, we don't have to be long suffering. So if you're doing that, you don't have to do that. You don't have to put yourself through that, and you don't have to put everyone that you love and are connected to through that either. None of us wants to suffer. You don't, deep down. Doesn't matter if you disagree with me. I don't mind. You don't. None of us does. None of us wants to suffer. So what's the solution? Well, there are ways out of that. The very fact that you're watching this live stream serves to me as conclusive proof that you know this deep down and that you're already looking for that. You're already seeking a way. Practicing today's idea will help you, whether A Course in Miracles is the main focus of your spirituality or not. Practice today's idea and accept happiness, true happiness, as your function in the world. How much different would the world be for you if you accepted happiness, real, lasting, constant happiness, the peace of God? How much different would your life be if you really, truly, deeply accepted that? Would your relationships be happier and more loving? Would your physical health improve? Would your work or your life purpose become clearer to you, more serving of love? What would this be like for you if you accepted that your function is joy, perfect happiness? So I invite and encourage you to sit with this idea today. I share God's will for happiness for me, and I accept it as my function now. In the commentary, in the workbook for lesson 102, that appears in italics. So recite it out loud if you want to, quietly in your own mind if you want to. But I invite you to take this idea and run with it. And if you're not going to run with it, that's all right. I invite you to take this idea and consider it. Toss it around in your mind and see if you don't feel any differently. Nobody's saying that you're going to have an instant flash of blinding light, flash of awakening. If you do, please message me so I can have you come on the show and tell us all about it. I'd love to know. Seriously. And if you don't, that's all right. Because it doesn't happen that way for most of us. It's forming a good habit. Spiritual practice is forming a healthy habit. It's like forming a healthy nutritional habit, for example. I mean, it's for our spiritual health and it's for our own awakening. It's for the extension of love. And I invite you to do that. So in whatever form your spirituality takes, take a look. I invite you to read the comments for lesson 102 in the workbook. They're very brief. They're very brief because really there's not much to add to this. What we're doing in practicing today's idea, taking it to heart, embodying it, integrating it into our lives, is we are accepting the truth of who we are. A Course in Miracles says in many, many places and is quite precise, quite clear, God's will and your will are one, the same. Not different, same. None of us wants to suffer. So why are we when we don't have to? That's the question. All right. So my favorite part is arriving here where I get to check in with all of you. And I thank you all for joining in with me, for all of the likes, the loves, the hearts, the shares, and all of your comments too. I love to interact. My wish for every single one of these lives is that they be as interactive as possible. So thank you all for tuning in. And John, hi, how are you? Thank you for tuning in here today. And read this comment. John, thank you for joining me here. Yeah. We're really, we're making improvements to ourselves. It appears, right? I say appears because who we really are is already perfect. But here in the world, we're peeling away all of the layers of our psychodrama, which apparently is my word for today, psychodrama. I like it. Has a ring to it. Here in the world, we're peeling away layers, and A Course in Miracles describes it in a way that you may find helpful. It's removing the obstacles or the barriers to our awareness of love, the awareness of God, of who we really are. Same, yeah. We're removing all of those barriers, and it's a process, isn't it? So it looks in the world like we're improving ourselves, or we're certainly reawakening to the truth, the happiness, the joy of who we are. Happily, we discover along the way that who we really are, happiness, joy, love, has never gone anywhere. So it's really not an improvement because we can't be improved upon. However, in the world, we are really, we really do make progressive shifts. Yeah. So, I mean, that to improve is yeah, that's one way that we characterize it, and that has a lot of value, doesn't it? Because this is something that we can see over time, right? And John, I really appreciate this comment because we can see this over time. You know, we can see that when we started our practice, let's say it was several years ago, if we've done it consistently, if we've committed to it, then we arrive at a very different place today, don't we? I mean, I think of when the course discovered me. I like to say it that way. It's more accurate than I discovered it. Yeah, it spoke to me. Picked it up, bought the edition that I currently own, the second combined edition in 2013. Yeah, it's been 8 years, and that has been the centerpiece of my spirituality ever since. So whether it is or not, there's so much here in these lessons for all of you. So if you're catching me on the replay here, thank you for tuning in, and feel welcome to leave comments, questions. I'm happy to get to those because I do check them throughout the day. Now, I wanted to check in, and hi, April, how are you? Thanks for tuning in here. I want to just let you know that while this is a daily live stream, I am not going to be broadcasting tomorrow, Saturday, or Sunday. I will see you all again next week. I've got a senior in high school who is graduating from high school on Saturday, so I'll be doing some traveling. I'll be in the air on a plane tomorrow and at a graduation ceremony and party over the weekend. So I'm taking a 3-day break. However, I invite you to check in with Enlightened World Network on the daily show guide at the beginning of every day. I will be back broadcasting live here on Enlightened World Network next week for you. So thank you so much for tuning in. Everybody have a great day and a great weekend. And I will see all of you in a few days.